Picture this. The year is 1430, somewhere deep in the forests of northern Europe. The air outside has dropped to 40 degrees below zero, cold enough to freeze exposed skin in minutes, cold enough to kill. Yet inside a modest timber dwelling, a family sits comfortably around a glowing hearth, their children playing on warm floors, their bodies wrapped not in synthetic fleece, but in simple wool and linen. They will sleep through the night without shivering, without modern insulation, without electricity or natural gas. This isn't fantasy. This is historical fact. And the techniques that kept our medieval ancestors alive through some of history's coldest winters hold secrets that even our modern technology struggles to replicate. The masonry stove, engineering heat to last. At the heart of medieval cold-weather survival stood the masonry stove, known across Central Europe as the Kachelofen. Unlike the wasteful open fireplaces we often associate with castles and great halls, the masonry stove represented centuries of refined engineering, built from carefully arranged stone, brick, and ceramic tile. These structures weren't simply fireplaces. They were thermal batteries. The design forced hot gases from a wood fire to travel through a labyrinth of internal channels before exiting through the chimney. As the smoke and heat wound through these serpentine passages, the massive stone structure absorbed the thermal energy like a sponge drinking water. A single fire, burned hot and fast for just 2 to 3 hours, would heat the surrounding masonry to temperatures that remained warm to the touch for an entire day, sometimes longer. Families would gather around these towering stoves, bake bread in their integrated ovens, and sleep with their beds positioned against the warm walls. The efficiency was staggering, where an open fire might send 70% of its heat straight up the chimney. A well-built masonry stove captured and released nearly 90% of the energy from its fuel over many hours. Living architecture, insulation from the earth itself. Medieval builders understood something modern construction often forgets. The earth itself is a thermal regulator. Across Scandinavia and northern Europe, homes were frequently built partially underground or bermed with earth on multiple sides. The soil, just a few feet below the surface, maintains a relatively constant temperature year-round, cool in summer, but crucially, never freezing even when surface temperatures plummet to deadly extremes. These semi-subterranean structures, combined with walls built thick with wattle and daub, woven branches plastered with mixtures of clay, straw, and sometimes animal dung, created insulation barriers that trapped heat with remarkable effectiveness. Roofs, layered 2 or even 3 feet deep with thatched straw or reeds, formed dense blankets of trapped air pockets overhead. The materials were humble, gathered from the landscape itself, yet they formed barriers against cold that kept interior temperatures survivable even as blizzards raged outside. Perhaps most ingenious was the medieval understanding that survival meant community, not just among humans but between humans and animals. The longhouse design, prevalent across northern Europe, placed livestock at one end of the structure and human living quarters at the other, often with only a partial wall between. The body heat of cattle, sheep, and goats, each animal a living furnace generating warmth simply by existing, radiated through the shared space. This wasn't merely convenience. It was a calculated survival strategy. A single cow produces roughly the same heat output as a small space heater running continuously. Multiply that by a small herd, and you've created a biological heating system that requires no fuel, no maintenance, only the fodder the animals would need regardless. These weren't primitive people making do with inferior methods. They were engineers of necessity who understood thermal mass, insulation, and heat retention at a level that modern society, insulated by cheap fossil fuels, has largely forgotten. As we face an uncertain future where resilience and self-reliance become increasingly valuable, these medieval techniques offer more than historical curiosity. They offer practical blueprints for survival. The principles remain sound: capture heat, store it, release it slowly, use mass and earth, cluster together, waste nothing. If this journey into forgotten survival wisdom resonated with you, go ahead and subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles. Share this with anyone who values self-reliance, historical knowledge, and the skills that kept humanity alive through the darkest, coldest nights. The past has much to teach us if we're willing to listen.